Hi everybody, it's me, the Fetch, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there is Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, The Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Co-host Dr. Sasha Lessin. Today we interview our guest, attorney Rey Hernandez, and he and his entire family are what we call experiencers. And we'll explain more about that on our show, but those listeners here in this audience are probably aware of what experiencers are, but we will refresh your memory. He is currently employed as an estate tax attorney with the IRS, U.S. Department of Treasury. He was previously an adjunct professor for 6 years at the New School for Social Research and the City University of New York. He was also the director of the Center for Sustainable Urban Environment at the City University of New York and the director of the Office of Community Environmental Planning for the City of New York. He has attended Rutgers College, Cornell University, and was a Ph.D. candidate at UC Berkeley in City and Regional Planning. He was also the recipient of a National Science Foundation Ph.D. fellowship at UC Berkeley. And Rey resides with his family in Miami, Florida. But Rey is involved with the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, also known as FREE. And the website is experiencer.org. So we're going to be talking about FREE and the research and all the information collected about experiencers. Dr. Lessin, what would you like to say?
Okay, the experiencer movement is really important. Just as experiencers are a big portion of the population who have been marginalized by pluralistic ignorance and media propaganda that the extraterrestrial phenomena that they do indeed access must be shushed up because of the national security concerns of our central government. And we are disclosure. Those of us who have had experiences are part of what's really going on and what really needs to come to the fore, because what comes to the fore is not just individuals and their experiences, but the possibilities of medical and energy and other kinds of help that can make this planet a lot more livable. Yes, we have extensive contact, and yes, what Rey's research done is the tip-top scientific research has shown that basically contact is ameliorative, it's good, and that at some level people have usually given consent. Either they've actually remembered giving consent when they do hypnosis, or they remember it by themselves, or retroactively they think they probably in past life gave consent. In any case, the healthy attitude of people, as people become more and more healthy, is to put value on their experience, whatever it is. And Rey's case is particularly instructive because not only did Ray and his family have certain experiences, but they each put them into their own symbols, their own way of describing it, which is, the elephant of reality is grasped from many different angles, and we need them all. And Ray's work is really helping the entire planet free itself from the lies that they've been living with. Go for it, Ray.
So Ray is one of the co-founders of FREE, the Foundation for Research of Extraterrestrial Encounters. So welcome to our show, Rey Hernandez. Hello, Ray. Can you hear us? Hello, Ahmad. Can you hear us?
Oh, I can hear you. He's showing here.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes. There you are. Hi, Ray. How are you doing?
Thank you. I tried to put some headphones on, but I guess they weren't working, so I apologize for that. And thank you for that lovely introduction, Sasha.
Sure.
Oh, we're so happy to have you back. And yes, I have like 6 sets of headphones now because sometimes they stop working and I just switch to the other one. They're finicky things. So, Ray, what's going on with FREE? Tell us what's latest and greatest.
Oh goodness, there's a lot going on. First of all, just for the audience members that are not familiar with our organization, as you stated earlier, the formal name is the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. And we might be changing the name extraterrestrial because every member of our board of directors, including Dr. Edgar Mitchell, knew fully well that ET is not the appropriate terminology for what we're dealing with. We're having a board of directors meeting in a couple of weeks, and that issue will be presented to the board. But
well, what would you change it to so you can keep FREE?
Correct. Well, we're looking at exceptional. We're looking at extraterrestrial / interdimensional. We have like about 4 or 5 different options.
What about extraordinary?
That's another one that we're looking at. That's another one that we're looking at. But basically, the vast majority of our board members believe that the phenomenon that we're experiencing is both physical and at the same time ethereal. So it really is extraterrestrial and interdimensional and intradimensional, because our brains and our own consciousness is a component of it. So it's all of the above, and there really isn't a word to describe all of those 3 terms that I just described: the extraterrestrial, the interdimensional, and the intradimensional aspect of this phenomenon under the rubric of consciousness.
I guess I'd also add, inside Earth, what would you call it? Subterranean, or so under the waters. People have had experiences in both those places, and they're pretty well documented.
Yeah. I guess the term terrestrial means physical aspect of this reality. So it's not an easy. The term really hasn't been invented. I guess the most appropriate broad term that can be used is consciousness. But again,
Yes.
Consciousness means 100 things to 100 different people, which then has to be further clarified and defined. But basically, just to continue with the introduction, this is an organization that was co-founded by the late Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who really needs no introduction, but I'll give a very brief one. He's most widely known as the Apollo 14 astronaut, but also Edgar was the founder of the Institute for Noetic Sciences, which is a non-for-profit organization in California that was established to investigate the science behind telepathy, ESP, energy healing, the scientific aspects of the ethereal, for lack of a shorter terminology. Edgar also was very much into the mystical literature and the relationship of the mystical tradition with advanced quantum physics. And that's where our second co-founder comes in, and that's Dr. Rudy Shield. Dr. Rudy Shield is currently the executive director of FREE, and he is an emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard University, and he is one of the world's leading cosmologists. His expertise is in black holes. He had an academic battle with Sir Stephen Hawking as to the true nature of black holes, and Rudy's version won out. And also Rudy's version of reality is way, way down the rabbit hole of almost any other astrophysicist. It gets into, a whole mystical aspect of the black holes being the center of Akashic records, that the black holes are the neurons of God consciousness, the neurons of God's brain, and it's very, very detailed through advanced physics. But anyway, Rudy is a heavy, deep thinker, and that's how he and Edgar got together in the first place. Now, the third co-founder is Mary Rodwell, who is a genius in her own right, and I consider her the world's expert on individuals that have had UFO-related contact experiences with non-human intelligence. Mary, once again, to use that familiar term, is way, way down the rabbit hole with all of these issues. And she's pretty much in sync with Edgar and Rudy and myself and all the other members on our board, that what is happening is not just, ETs coming from a particular planet or a particular star system, that is much, much more complex than that. That leads to the whole point that our organization is not a ufology organization, a typical ufology organization. Our interest is really trying to understand consciousness, but understanding consciousness through experiencers of contact with non-human intelligence. We believe that what's going on with this contact is an interdimensional, intradimensional, and terrestrial aspect of contact, that the quantum hologram theory of physics and consciousness, which is a theory developed by Rudy and Edgar, can possibly explain the complex physics of what's going on with not only UFO-related contact, but with all of the paranormal and ESP. And so that's the approach that we take, the underpinning. And the way we're initially approaching this analysis of what is consciousness is by undertaking the world's first comprehensive academic research study on individuals that have had UFO-related contact experiences. And eventually what we want to be able to do is to compare this group with other individuals that have had contact with non-human intelligence, but via other types of contact modalities, i.e. near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, shamanic journeys, mystical meditation, remote viewing, channeling, spirit world contacts, etc., etc. We believe that by comparing all these experiencers that have had contact with non-human intelligence through these diverse contact modalities, we might be able to begin to understand the true nature of our reality, which is a nature that's comprised of interaction through a multiverse of experiences. And so that is totally different from investigating, UFO cases, from going out in the field with a little Geiger counter, a little, cameras and all these measuring devices. We're not interested in photos. We're not interested in all these other aspects that typical ufology is interested. We're really not interested in those type of topics. Our focus is on consciousness and on contact.
Fascinating. So MUFON can take one part of this whole continuum, and you can take the other part. And then I like what you're doing, because I've always aligned more with this type of research. I know I approached MUFON, 20, 30 years ago, and they were kind of too nuts and bolts and they couldn't quite understand what I was going through as a contactee experiencer. So we're so grateful that this organization has come about, and it's overdue. So with all that in mind, what are you discovering about this phenomenon?
About the people that have experiences.
About the people, and I know we went through all the statistics before.
We can iterate them again.
And we can go through some of them again, but I guess what I was struck by your intro is, what are you discovering about consciousness? How would you define consciousness? How are the experiencers defining, and researchers and, people like the founders? What do they think consciousness is?
Surely. Our research study, let me just give you a background of how it started. As both of you know, I do have an academic background, and I was not an experiencer until an event that occurred in my living room in March of 2012. And no one in my family had any type of experience, either seeing UFOs or paranormal experiences or any type of contact with non-human intelligence. So, and even then, I was an atheist as well. So, and then this event in our living room totally, was like a big atom bomb that blew up in my head. And so, and one of the things that I did after this contact experience with a non-human intelligent being in my own living room, and having my wife disappear in front of me and my dog, and we were going to be euthanizing our dog. My wife was praying all night, and then this energy being appeared in our living room. It, in front of me, took my wife away, took my dog away, and put me to sleep for 45 minutes. And then when I woke up, my wife then reappeared right in front of my eyes, and the dog also reappeared, but now the dog was totally cured. And remember, we were going to be putting her to sleep that same day. So, and this was a plasma energy being. So basically, it just blew my mind. And I then began to do a whole lot of research in this. Initially, I thought it was paranormal, until several months later, my wife then began seeing UFOs and different types of primarily human-looking ET beings. And then I knew it was UFO related because she had described the UFOs that she had seen, and on several occasions with her family members in Mexico. So after a lot of work myself in this field, I realized that going to the internet is not going to help me out, because 99% of it was pure BS. And so I did what Sasha's very familiar with. I tried to do an academic literature review of what has been written about experiencers of contact with non-human intelligence. And what I found out was that almost nothing has been, done scientifically, academically, on people that have had these types of experiences. For example, the works of David Jacobs, those are not academic studies. But Hopkins, even the work of Dr. John Mack, what he basically did was the most individuals he interviewed were about 200 people during his whole lifetime of working with experiencers. And then what he did was he wrote comparative summaries of the experiences that these individuals had. So, it's not an academic statistical study, and it's not really a sophisticated qualitative type of study either. And so then as an organization, I brought forth to Edgar and Rudy and Mary that the first initiative that we ought to take is to do a formal academic study of people that have had UFO-related contact experiences. And in terms of answering finally your question, Sasha and Janet, I just wanted to give that background. It's important for the viewers to understand.
That's great. Yeah, glad you did.
Yeah, the way we approach the questions and the methodology is totally different from what anyone would think and suspect. There were some tiny studies that were done by ufologists in the past, but they only had like 50 people that they brought to the survey, and these people were self-identified. These are people that had gone to MUFON, had gone to all these other ufology organizations, and everyone knew that they were abductees. So it just focused only on abductees, and it was people that were already self-identified. And the vast majority of them were people that were that had gone to David Jacobs or Bud Hopkins. And these are two individuals that see these experiences from a totally negative perspective. So what we did is we're going to do our study not just on abductees, but on anyone that's had any type of contact with non-human intelligence as related to UFO sightings. And we publicized it all over the place. I mean, I won't go into the details of how we publicized it because it's quite extensive. And it was so extensive that we've gotten so far 3,100 responses to our surveys. Now, getting back to our findings, the findings that we've got pretty much contradict what's circulating in the internet and what's circulating in the field of ufology. And let me just give a very brief overview of our findings. First of all, 75% of experiencers have viewed their experiences as positive, while only 15% have viewed their experiences as negative. The most important finding that we have found was that 85% of these individuals, of the 3,100 individuals, 85% have undergone major transformations for the positive. A whole complete psychological profile took place. For example, individuals that were non-spiritual, like myself, all of a sudden become very spiritual. Individuals that are just focused on religion, all of a sudden are not religious, but very spiritual. People that were very egotistical, all of a sudden are less egotistical. People that didn't care about environmental issues, all of a sudden are crazy about preserving the environment. People who were money hungry, their whole lives centered around money, all of a sudden had no concern for monetary values. People that had zero compassion for their fellow human beings, all of a sudden have tons of compassion for other individuals. We went through almost 75 questions that dealt with transformational issues. And for each of those questions...
Let me just say that these lists that you just went through is exactly the list you would get when you say what happens from successful depth psychotherapy. This very same positive results that you just outlined, including increase of spirituality, concern for the environment, and it's the same list, greater mental health.
Correct. Let me just tell you where we got these questions from. I was reading a book by Dr. Kenneth Ring. Kenneth Ring is probably the world's leading academic on near-death experiences. He's been researching this field academically for over 30 years. He's now retired. And in 1988, he published one of the few statistical studies on experiencers, of UFO-related contact experiencers. And what he did is he compared roughly 100 individuals that had UFO-related contact experiences with 100 people that had near-death experiences. And he primarily focused on what impact did these experiences have in changing their lives. And we reduplicated that study. What he found was that for both groups, the NDE group and the UFO contact group, both of them had the same exact changes in all of these categories. Tremendous psychological profile changes, like you stated before, Sasha. So we said, okay, all the members in our group, and Janet and Sasha, you know most of these individuals. These are people that have been working with experiencers for over 30 years, each of them. Rosemary Ellen Guiley, Mary Rodwell, Giorgio Piacenza from Peru, Dr. John Climo, et cetera, et cetera. So these individuals already knew from working with experiencers that this is what's happening to experiencers, but no one was able to quantify it. Dr. Ring was the very first one to do it, but that was only 100 people. So we said, let's apply this to the 3,100 people that took our surveys. And we found the same exact finding that Dr. Ring did in 1988. That book, for individuals that want to buy that book, is titled The Omega Project. by Dr. Kenneth Ring. So
Thank
that
you.
to everyone, there's the most important finding. I could go on all the other findings if you'd like, but if you want to, I'll stop there for a second for any comments.
Okay. Go ahead, Sash.
Well, just Art Janoff found the exact same thing for people that went through primal therapy, which in-depth therapy, where you relive trauma and you reframe it. And that's what happens as people mature, no matter how traumatic they may have thought the experience. It's a function of maturity. They look at what were the gains I got from the experience, and the gains all come into a wider perspective and a more loving attitude toward themselves and others in the planet.
So I have a question.
Yes,
Go ahead.
I
You
was
can
going to
answer
do.
that.
I was going to comment on what Sasha said.
Go ahead.
In additional, but don't forget your question there, Jan.
Okay.
We asked the question. Hopefully, I can bring it up later. Is how would you describe your overall attitude towards your experiences when they first started? And then we asked that same question: how would you describe your experiences now? And for most of these people, it's many, many years later. And we asked them to describe it as positive, negative, both positive as negative, or neutral. Now, in the beginning of the experiences, 38% described their experiences as negative. That's 38%. But then now, how would they describe their experiences? Only 15% said it was negative. So over time, we don't know which one is it, whether the experiences changed or their perception of their experiences through maturity, as you said before, Sasha, changed, because they realized, well, what had me actually scared was, that E.T. just was so ugly that scared the hell out of me, or that experiment that they did on my table, they really, didn't harm me. I was just more scared than anything. So, we'll get into the details as to why they changed in our interviews. But at least, as you mentioned, Sasha, over time, there's a reflection that takes place. And that reflection caused all these changes for these individuals for the positive. I apologize, Janet.
Oh, no, that's okay. I should have allowed room for the response, and thank you. That was my bad. But what I wanted to do was go back to what you said earlier about David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins had primarily negative people that had negative experiences. John Mack, actually, Sasha, Dr. Lessin knew John Mack very well. Personally, they studied together for years under Stan Groff. So I don't know if you're familiar with Groff work, but that's very spiritual in nature. So with that in mind, perhaps the people that were coming to these people, like David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins, were kind of responding to some kind of law of attraction and action. And since these were negative facilitators, they might have been pulling out negative, they might have been on some subconscious level pulling into their arena negative experiencers and pulling out from the experiencers negative experiences. And that's one of the concerns about doing therapy. To what level let me finish this thought. What level can these therapists affect the outcome with their clients?
Well, some people have compared Jacobs to the Donald Trump of the experiencer situation. There people who are afraid, people who are paranoid, tend to go to therapists that reflect that.
Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on that, Ray? Are you finding that sometimes therapists may inadvertently skew the data and the experience for the experiencers?
Sure, I agree with what Sasha said, and let me just add more filler to that statement. First of all, Jacobs, since the very, very beginning, because I've listened to interviews and also writings of his from when he first started and compared to now, and he pretty much hasn't changed. He has publicly stated on numerous occasions that he's never met an experiencer with a positive experience. Okay. Now, to me, that's an agenda because that's absolutely BS. All you need to do is go to the internet and you'll see hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals that have had positive experiences. Books that have been written by experiencers. Again, you'll see thousands of books that have been written by experiencers that have been positive. So for someone to publicly and consistently state on all these radio interviews that he's never met an experiencer with a positive experience, to me, that's someone with an agenda. I don't know if it's a paid agenda or not, but that certainly is agenda. And anyone that makes those type of statements, you take that with a grain of salt because, to me, it's pure BS, agenda BS. Now, Bud Hopkins, I've spoken to many, many people and experiencers. And also I've gotten the same information from other researchers. And it's as follows, that many, many people went to Bud Hopkins. Once he realized that these were positive experiences, he said, well, maybe you need to go to Leo Sprinkle. Okay. The point is that Leo basically is the total opposite side. Most of the interactions that he deal with experiencers have had positive experiences. And I won't name the people, okay, but some of them are well known.
Right.
People that were basically tossed out by Hopkins. Oh, you got a positive experience? I don't want to deal with you. Bye-bye. I want to get all the scary folks, okay? That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that a lot of this information came through hypnotic regression. Now, while hypnotic regression in the hands of a well-trained therapist is an extremely useful tool, both of these individuals were not well-trained therapists, okay? People did not go to Hopkins and Jacobs for therapy. They did not have the background that Sasha had. That Mary Rodwell had, she was trained as a therapist. Leo Sprinkle, he has a Ph.D. in psychological counseling. You go to these individuals, Dr. John Mack, the medical doctor, a psychiatrist, you go to these people, you get folks that are well-trained in hypnotherapy and you get well-trained in psychotherapy. So, their objective was to try to extract data. And as I said earlier, data for their convenience. So I take a lot of the information of the people that walk through their door and under hypnotherapy to tell them experiences. I take all of that with a grain of salt. So those are my comments to these two individuals. And Dr. John Mack, initially, he received most of the experiences that he worked with initially from Bud Hopkins. And his first book, I think it's titled Abduction, reflected that type of point of view. Which is somewhat a Bud Hopkins types of a point of view. But then after Dr. Mack began to work with a lot of experiencers on his own, a lot of people went to him independently of Bud Hopkins. Then he had a total opposite perspective of Hopkins and Jacobs, which was much, much more comprehensive, consciousness-based, interdimensional-based, spiritual-based. I could go on and on and on. It's just a totally different perspective. And the findings that we have gotten from our study reflect the type of research that Dr. Mack was heading into, which he was never really able to fully take it to that next step, but where he certainly was taking the approach that we took with our free study.
Yes, and I heard that he was coming from a meeting with Rupert Sheldrake when he got killed. So he was definitely looking at the consciousness level of the experience.
Yeah.
And he was also exploring that.
Also, he was a very close friend of Dr. Rudy Shields. And Rudy is really one of the world's leading experts on the physics of consciousness. He has several issues of the Journal of Cosmology devoted to consciousness. And Rudy was the one that had first taught Dr. Mack about the topic of a multiverse, about the topic of consciousness. And that provided Dr. Mack with a science-based foundation to try to put into all the different types of experiences that his clients told him. Because unless you had that science-based umbrella, then it becomes a very metaphysical approach to this. And Dr. Mack was always very, scientific. So the metaphysical aspect, he was able to bring it under the multiverse, the consciousness, the quantum hologram theories of Dr. Rudy Shields, which in turn are very metaphysically based. You cannot separate one from the other. But most of the questions that we asked in our survey related to paranormal questions that MUFON wouldn't even bother going near, and all these other ufology organizations. Our questions were sort of like the antithesis of how they would approach interviewing folks, because our approach was very much from a paranormal perspective, together with all the nuts and bolts questions, like the abduction related questions, the alien breeding type of questions, the implants, all of these type of standard questions that you would get through a MUFON based inquiry. We put it on steroids, and we got heavy duty into the whole paranormal aspects of it that these types of ufology organizations would not go near, but we did. And if you'd like, I could go into some of those research findings
We'll do that, but Sasha has a question, and then I have one.
It's not just a question. In Stan Groff work, which John Mack and I were both training for many years with Stan Groff, where people go into an altered state, either with entheogenic facilitation or by fast breathing that changes the oxygen content of the blood while you play powerful evocative music, and you're being watched over by a non-judgmental sitter. What we find is that we did this with thousands of people, that very, very common in every group of 100 or so, there would be many people that recalled with total clarity and relived various kinds of what we would call paranormal experiences, and that the normal everyday reality is just a conventional reality that you can go way, way underneath. And almost everybody has had experiences of consciousness that aren't limited to their skin-encapsulated self-sense.
Yes, no, absolutely correct. That's the actual philosophy that Free takes. That there are many different types of contact modalities. You just described one. Other people that are experienced meditators, a lot of these folks go out of body while they're meditating, and then out of body they have interactions with non-human intelligence. Channelers, people are able to get into this zone, of channeling, and are able to download information or automatic writing. A lot of the folks, for example, in Grupo Rama, a lot of the people have had numerous types of contact with usually human-looking beings. Many of them over the years have developed automatic writing, like go out to the desert, this date, this time, we will appear to you. They go out there with a group of 20, 25 people, boom, the UFOs show up, That's what Sixto Paz has been doing for many, many years. Ricardo Gonzalez, and all of those folks that came out of Grupo Rama. So
I would say also
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. My Hopi friends tell me of extensive and continuing contact with extraterrestrials, and the, like you say, ayahuasca, peyote, marijuana, San Pedro have all been used to facilitate spirit quests, and in the spirit quests, extraterrestrials and interdimensionals and subterraneans definitely contact people.
Yeah. You probably know of this study, Sasha. This professor at the University of New Mexico. He's not there anymore, but he did the world's first study of DMT. What is his name? His name just my Alzheimer's is kicking in here. Strassman, Dr. Rick Strassman, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And what he discovered is that they administered DMT. They inhaled it. They synthesized it and they inhaled it. And they discovered that 50% of the individuals had contact with non-human intelligence. Okay.
Yeah.
And I did the same exact thing myself a little bit over a year ago. And I had contact with non-human intelligence. Okay. What I suspect that is people that are experiencers are able to have it quite easily because they already have pierced that veil, so it just comes very naturally. And so
I had a similar thing. when I was in the hospital in 2010, I had a gallbladder attack, and whatever they gave me, I was instantly in contact with extraterrestrials, and I was staring and communicating with them telepathically. And the nurse came over, and she like went, "Are you okay?" And she didn't realize I was right there having this massive contact, because I know the way. The experiencers know the way.
Yeah.
Where to go to contact them. I was going to tell her what was going on and freak her out, but it was amazing. It was like, wow.
And that fear of freaking other people out and having sanctions of some sort, all the way from ridicule to imprisonment, come down upon you is part of what's been inhibiting people from breaking the pluralistic ignorance where you're encouraged to make fun of people and experiences that millions and millions, over 5 million people in the United States alone, and that's just the United States, have had extraterrestrial, they would call it extraterrestrial contact.
Yeah. No, it's since my experiences happened, I tell everybody, about these experiences and what's going on. And I really don't give two hoots, okay? And what I found out was that almost every individual, it might not have been themselves, but maybe a brother or a sister or their parents or their children or a friend of theirs, somebody has had some type of anomalous contact experience. Let me give you just a couple of examples, okay? We have living with us now my wife's niece, okay? She saw a ghost in Mexico. Dressed in a guayabera, in their own home, and it turned out to be the man that died there before they purchased a home. Okay, my wife's sister had told us about her experiences seeing, non-human intelligence on a couple of occasions. Her mother. Okay, one of my best friends, this person, I had no idea he was having all these nightly out-of-body experiences. Very, very conscious, like floating around in the neighborhood. He tells me, I passed by your neighborhood the other day, floating.
Wow.
I never even knew this. This man is 65 years old. He's a farm worker. Okay. He's an agricultural worker with like minimal education, And when I started bringing up these things, he finally, opened up. I've had other friends that they've seen orbs, gigantic orbs, just like in Rendlesham Forest, that type of a situation. Or his wife and his children have seen these little orbs do displays, Another friend that his father saw a huge triangle, massive shaped craft in leaving the jungles of Ecuador. Okay. This lady that I know, a Colombian lady, okay, she was here in my house. She was listening to me talking about UFOs, right, in Spanish. She goes, "Ray, what do you know about UFOs?" This is all in Spanish, right? And I said, Dulce, which is my wife's name, she didn't tell you about our experiences? And she said, no. I said, well, sit down, okay? And then after that, she told me an experience, just like Dr. Mack when he went out to Africa to research that school where all these children saw the craft land and the three little alien grades come out, right? She had the same exact experience in Colombia. Same exact.
Yeah. Okay. Some of this is the function of ethnocentrism. As a cultural anthropologist, I can tell you almost every society has contact with ghosts and what we would call the paranormal. And by our strict dichotomization between the materialist bent that the scientists have settled upon, makes them exclude as ignorance the wisdom of other cultures.
Yeah, 100%, Sasha. Right on the money.
Phenomena.
Yeah, it's like this was standard, okay? Before Western civilization brought its so-called science and technology, they've actually brought us to the Dark Ages because we totally lost sense with the nature of our true reality, which is a multidimensional reality filled with conscious sentient beings and multidimensional, spirits and entities, and we were able to interact with them, And we've lost touch of that reality, and we really need to get back to that. And I think our research study is pointing that way because maybe I guess is a good time to get into some of these things, some of these findings here.
Well,
we
I
we
have
asked.
one more
Yes,
question, and then
surely.
we'll get into all those things. So
Yeah.
you're in the middle of this with your other team members, and you're looking at the data and analyzing it. What kind of cosmology, what kind of picture is emerging about the organization of the universe and what it really is like? Have you been able to kind of grasp a universal picture that might be much different than the one that's being shown us through religion and governments?
Well, we haven't, formally sat down as a group to address that specific question, but it's a finding that all of the members knew about before we went into this. That basically, we as humans are in fact interdimensional beings. That we don't die. Our physical, bodies might die, but our spirit or soul, whatever you might want to call it, continues. That there are numerous types of non-human intelligence in all different types of forms that are interacting with physical humans, and that more than likely it's as I said before, it's an interdimensional and an intradimensional, because our brain is being used as a radio reception receiver to filter out, to prevent us from accepting this true nature of our reality. Some people have been able to pierce the veil, let's say through NDEs or using other hallucinogens or a meditation, that sort of thing. They've been able to pierce that veil, and then it opens up the sieve for more further type of downloads of information. And from my perspective, it really validates the whole perspective of Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Rudy Shields, that we live in a very complex multiverse, maybe a quantum hologram type of reality, that's filled with almost an infinite amount of universes, and that these information is being transmitted among these different types of realities. And that's what people call consciousness, how this information is being traveling back and forth. What Rudy discovered in his studies of black holes is that black holes are actually serve as an information depository for our galaxy. Information, which is comprised of matter and non-matter, thoughts, for example. It was previously thought by Hawking and numerous other theoretical physicists that it would be sucked up by these black holes. Okay. And what Rudy found out, that information is actually being stored within the black holes, sort of like a hard drive. And then once you take in the 0-point energy fields that Edgar had been studying with numerous other PhD physicists, mainly Hal Puthoff from Stanford, these 0-point energy fields are sort of like the roads, the conduits that move information from one source to another. For example, from your brain to the black hole, tap that information and return it back. And that these advanced beings are able to tap into these 0-point energy fields to grab information. And it's not only information about our current reality, but also the past, present, and future, and also multidimensional, because quantum physics understands that everything is tied in together. There's no separation. Okay, and so Rudy has, primarily Rudy, has developed a very, very complex theory of consciousness, which he hasn't published yet. But I myself and Edgar and several others have been privy to. And that theory really explains what's a very good explanation of what's going on with telepathy, with the paranormal. Rudy calls them the modern miracles. Okay, all these things that the paranormal and the ESP and the contact phenomenon that people just thought were crazy type of experiences. No, it's not crazy. It's actually very normal. It explains our reality.
I would suggest just a little experiment for the listener. Think of someone who you loved, who has you regard as wise, who's dead, and picture that person. Imagine that person comes to you, and even let that person's thoughts come into yours. You may even voice them, and see what they have to tell you that would further your existence and the existence of the planet. If you were to just stop and do that, you'll be amazed at what you find.
So, with all that in mind, we have about 8 minutes before the top of the hour. So, did you want to start doing some of the statistics, and then we'll take a break for about 5 minutes, and then we'll be back for the balance of the show.
Okay, great.
Like
In the balance of the show, okay. I would really like to focus on the support and the experiencer side aspect of it.
Cool.
But let me go over some of the data here. First of all, we asked the question: have you, this is the experiencer, ever had an out of body experience? And everyone was shocked at the high number, 80%. 8 out of 10 of these individuals have had an out of body experience. Okay. Now, most of the researchers in our group knew it was a very high number, but they had no idea it was 80%. Okay. Also, getting back to this whole abduction versus not abduction perspective, in my case, I was never relocated to another location. That's the proper term is called abduction. I don't like to use that term because of all the negative connotation that ufology has put on it. Okay. We've had numerous other people that have been relocated to another location, but they haven't been experimented upon, as the typical ufology type of scenario. Many have. I'm not saying that it's not. Okay. So what we asked the question is, have you both seen a UFO and have had contact with a non-human intelligence, what is commonly called an abduction? Okay. And what we found out was that 68% of these individuals said that they have had UFO contact, that they have seen UFOs, and they have had contact with non-human intelligence, but they've never been abducted. Okay. Only 32% of these individuals have had what is typically called an abduction. So all these other previous studies that ufologists have done on abductions, okay, that misses 68% of the experiencers. Okay. A huge number. Okay, and that's a major finding that we've had. Okay?
Yeah.
And we've also, in terms of the paranormal type of questions, most of the people knew that near-death experiences, that many experiencers have had near-death experiences. So we asked that question. How many of you have had a near-death experience? What we have found out was that 37% have had a near-death experience. Huge numbers, okay? Huge numbers. I could go on for the next 10 minutes to talk about commonalities between UFO-related contact and NDEs, but let me just give you a couple of them, okay? First of all, what we discovered was that the top two type of beings that are seen by experiencers of UFO-related contact are the energy beings at 55% and the human-looking beings at 54%. Guess what are the top two type of beings seen by NDE experiencers? The energy beings and the human-looking type of beings. Okay. For both groups, how is communication taking place? Telepathically. Okay. Both groups, the folks that get taken to another location and have direct interaction with a being, and in my case, it was certainly that is applicable. Both groups are returned with psychic abilities, normally short-term duration. Doesn't last your whole life, but it's normally a short-term duration. People see auras around people. They have telepathy. They have precognition skills. Okay, that's been well documented in the NDE literature, and it's been well documented in our study and numerous other experiencers. And I could go on. The susceptibility to electrical devices, to watches, both groups, okay? Both the NDE professors, academics that have studied NDE experiencers said that many NDE experiencers, the lights go on under the street lights. They go on and off. Watches, they can't wear watches. Okay, where we've heard that before with the UFO-related contact experiences. And again, I could go on and on and on. So we pretty much know that there is a very strong relationship between these two cohorts, okay? And that's the next thing that we want to do later on in another major comparative study, comparing people who have had NDEs and people who have had UFO-related contact experiences. Because, again, it's all part of the... Yeah.
One thing I'm really curious about is there seems to be a military involvement in some of the supposed contacts, which may well have even been staged to intimidate people. Do you have any research on that?
Well, as I said, out of 3,100 people, we've got about 100 people that have reported what is typically called a MILAB, which is a military or a government or non-government human abduction. So it really wasn't a huge number, but it was about 100 people. And those were the most fearful, the most traumatic type of experiences, the MILAB type of experiences.
Thank you.
Have you have you recorded or asked any questions about time travel?
Yes.
Any of your experiencers?
Yes, that's another aspect that both groups have in common, the NDE and the other group. For both groups, there's a manipulation of space and time. Okay, for example.
Okay, hold that thought. Hold that thought, Ray. Here's our music. It's time for our break. We will be back in about 5 or 6 minutes.
Time travel.
And talking about everything.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
Why am I here?
You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here.
You haven't answered my question.
The Matrix is older than you know. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation.
Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lassan.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our Matrix of Truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. See how the trouble you've started?
Join us here on Revolution Radio, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern on Studio B for a politician, patriot, social savant, businessman, former investment banker, and Veterans Today columnist, Mike Harris. Listen to Mike as he exposes the corruption, sedition, and terrorism within our own government. He knows our system is flawed and that obstruction of justice is all too commonplace. His show, Short End of the Stick, pokes at this corruption with eloquent style. That's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., Studio B, for the Short End of the Stick, with the man who should have been elected governor of Arizona, Mike Harris.
That's right here on Revolution Radio.
Enjoy your extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another? Extra big-ass fries.
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
trouble.
trouble.
Come on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
Aloha and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com with your host, Janet Kerr Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin and our guest, Rey Hernandez. But before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to that donation button and donate what you can. $1, $5, $15, $20, $100, whatever you can donate will be greatly appreciated, and we do thank you very much for your donation. Thomas, do we have any specials this week?
No, ma'am, but we are asking for donations to help keep our reporter out there in North Dakota at the pipeline protest. So just write in there for the protest, and it'll go to the right people.
I want to say that I love Jill Stein for being there with our Native Americans and trying to stop this awful pipeline.
Yay. So, Sasha, you want to say something before we bring back Rey?
Rey is an example that for many of you who are listening, that we are ambassadors of higher consciousness, that we have opened ourselves to doing what we can, to bringing the truth of what's real, what the consciousness that we are embedded in, the larger picture, and doing something for this planet and for the consciousnesses, for the people and the beings that live on it. And so you've got good taste in listening to this program, and Rey has got the scientific information that if you need that to justify your existence, but you don't. Tell your truth, because it's your truth.
So, Rey, welcome back. And I know you wanted to cover medical healing, and we do have a couple of our high-level experiencers that are suffering right now from extreme diseases. So let's talk about the healing. They talk about being called on ship to heal, But let's talk about what you've uncovered about medical healing and extraterrestrials.
Okay. As I told you before, in my particular experience, our dog was disappeared right in front of me with my wife and returned 45 minutes later, and she was completely healed. She had been totally paralyzed. We were going to be euthanizing her, and my wife had been praying all night for some type of angelic intervention. And that's why my wife sees them as angels, because she'd been praying all night for angels to come, and this energy being came. She identified them as angels, and they totally cured our dog, and she lived for another year. So after I found out that this was UFO related, this was many months later, because initially I thought it was paranormal related. I came across this book by Preston Dennett, and he's well known within ufologists. He lives in California, and he wrote a book more than 15 years ago, which got zero publicity, zero interest. The title of the book was UFO Healings, and that book documented 220 cases of individuals that had been medically healed through their contact with non-human intelligence, UFO-related non-human intelligence. So then I decided to ask that question, okay? Because all the members of our board have heard of individuals that have had these types of healings. And as a matter of fact, one individual in our board had a healing by an ET or non-human intelligence, okay? That person has not gone public with that healing. So we asked that question, and what we found out was that 50%, half of these individuals have had a medical healing by a non-human intelligent being. And so my question to both of you is, why isn't this topic discussed more openly?
Well, the first things that come up to AMA, the Doctors Union.
Well, I think the angels that came to me in the hospital, that I was sitting there open-eyed and seeing all around me, were there to heal me, because I was about to cross over and die. So they just came in and intervened. That's why I'm still here. So, yeah, that's a good question. And when you ask that question, what kind of answer do you come up with? What do you think's going on?
What I came up with is that no one has ever done that research. No one had those data, those statistics. All of the members of our board knew that it was happening, but they had no idea to what extent, to what percentages. And so what we're going to be doing later on when we do with these interviews, later on in the future, we want to focus on the individuals that have had these medical healings and do a separate survey for these individuals to see how much of this was documented. For example, there's a very well-known experiencer. His name is Chris Bledsoe, okay? And I can talk about him openly because he spoke about it publicly. He had Crohn's disease. He was collecting a Social Security check because of his Crohn's disease. He was taken aboard a craft. He has no recollection of what happened. He was gone for 7 hours. And then when he was returned, he was completely healed of Crohn's disease. And that's fully documented through his medical records. Another well-known individual, Reverend Michael Carter, I don't know if you've interviewed him in the past.
I have.
Okay. I don't know if you knew that he's gone publicly with a medical healing that he had. One time he was released from the hospital with a blood clot that had been treated in the hospital for several days, but the leg was still twice the size as the other one. He then, was in pain after he was released and started praying. And this human-looking being, very tall, appeared in front of him, touched him, knocked him out. And then when he woke up, I forgot exactly how long, but I think it was a half an hour later, his leg was completely normal with no pain. Okay. Now, this is an ordained minister with his own congregation that's saying it's okay. So these are two well-documented cases, but I've spoken more than 10 individuals, very, very similar cases to Chris and Michael Carter.
Well, look at Travis Walton. Travis Walton now thinks that he had died and they took him on board. That's why he got teleported on board, was that they had to revive him and repair his body so he could be alive again.
We have numerous accounts from the ancient literature of people that have died and been brought back by extraterrestrial assistance.
Yes,
so perhaps a lot of these are being
literature. In the near-death experience literature, you get all these cases like Anita Morjani. She had tumors throughout her body. She died. She actually died. She was a hopeless case. They had given treating her. Okay, she had a near-death experience, and then there she met this entity, and she identified as God. This entity told her, "Look, when you return, there's not going to be a need for all this extensive treatment. You're completely healed." And that's exactly what she told the doctors when she came back. She says, "Look, you don't need to be doing all this stuff on me. Just stop. I don't want it." Okay. And they knew she was going to die anyway. They stopped. And what happened? Over like a 3 or 4 day period, she was like totally transformed. All her tumors went away. And again, another fully documented case.
So perhaps most of these that are, being dismissed as some kind of spiritual, religious healing, and they're actually extraterrestrial.
Or they may be saving themselves from iatrogenic murder too.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, it gets back to this whole thing that we are in essence multi-dimensional realities, living in a physical, temporary reality, and that these other entities are able to pierce the veil back and forth almost whenever they want, these higher level type of beings. Now, we also asked the question, how many of these individuals have had quote unquote paranormal experiences? And, we kind of knew what the response was going to be, but 95% of these individuals had a paranormal experience. Okay. 67%, getting back to your question earlier, Janet, 67% have received telepathic messages from these beings. 55% have had a missing time. Okay. 83% of these experiencers believe that non-human intelligence are somehow related to the spirit world. Isn't that an interesting finding? Okay.
It is.
83% of these individuals believe that these non-human intelligent beings that they've interacted with are somehow, they don't know the specifics, but are somehow related to the spirit world. Okay. Over a third of these individuals have received specific instructions from these entities about past lives, about reincarnation, about the spirit world, about God, etc., etc. Okay. We asked numerous questions, and roughly a third of them said, yes, this entity, this ET, for lack of a better word, okay, did tell me about all these things. Okay. Again, these are not the standard MUFON related type of questions, as you can tell. Right. Now, we did ask the standard MUFON related type of questions. Okay. We asked individuals, how many of you believe that you were involved in an alien breeding program? Well, we've had over 400 people said yes, they believe that they are involved in an alien breeding program. Okay. We've had almost 150 people said that they were even presented with a baby, with a hybrid baby. Okay. Many people with very, very, clear details of what took place. So it's, we know that's taking place, the alien breeding component of it. Again, only through the interviews, which we are not there yet, we'll be able to get even more detailed information of what's taking place. We've had 450 people that have had conscious memories of being aboard a UFO craft. 450, that's a hell of a lot of people, okay?
It is.
So it's, we do ask, the typical abduction type of related questions, whether they found themselves on a table, being looked after, checked on, were there any type of genetic procedures done on them, implants, do they believe they have an implant, where is the implant, all of those types of generic questions. We did not avoid those, okay?
Let me ask one question that's troubled me a lot. Do you have any information on the purpose of the anal probes, which was so upsetting to a Whitley Strieber and others? Why do they do that?
Well, we asked many different locations of where these implants are located, and I don't think anyone suggested an anal probe. but an anal implant. But what I've heard other experiencers talk about was that that is a way to be able to investigate your whole digestive tract, just like someone that's getting a colonoscopy, because while you're having these procedures done, what we've learned from a good many of these experiences is that they're looking at your health. Do you have cancer? Do you have any other type of diseases? And many people, their diseases are cured or at least addressed in these types of investigations. So
Thank you.
a lot of people speculate that it's like a colonoscopy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple questions, and then we'll continue with the stats. The 400 people said yes, that they are part of the hybrid program. Now, for years, it seemed to be that was the major focus, and you've had 3,100 people that responded. I would have thought that number would have been higher than 400 people that realized they were part of the hybrid program. So that's... and then I had another... I can't remember who it was, but he said that everyone has been taken, and that they are taken at punctuated intervals throughout their childhood, and at a certain point, they are the ones that are to continue in this whatever that's going on, repeated lifetime contact, are selected, and the rest are just returned to normal life. Have you heard comments or reflections on those two things I just said?
Okay. Well, for your second question, the internet is full of experts, okay? And the vast majority of them are contradicting each other, okay? The bottom line is whoever told you that information did not have any statistics to back that up. He might have, spoken with 20, 30, 40, 50 different experiencers, or he might have read 100 books, written by experiencers. And that's how many of these individuals get their information, through books by experiencers. We actually asked these questions of the 3,100 experiencers. So we got the actual statistics and percentages, not from a few hundred people, but from, very, very large numbers. And one of the reasons why that data is skewed in terms of the alien breeding program is that 68% of the people were never abducted. Okay. Right there is 2/3 are not even participating. Now, the people that are relocated to another place or abducted, whatever you might want to call it, as Sasha said earlier, a good many of them are doing it voluntarily. Okay. 1/3 of the people said that, yes, they agreed to this. Okay. Either they agreed to it now or through a past life that they were able to recall. Okay. Also, many people, when they get relocated, it's not just to a little operating table or a doctor's office up on an ET ship. Okay. Many people are relocated into a matrix type of reality where they get downloads or interact with entities. They get relocated to another planet or like under the earth. Okay. Where they're given tours, things of that sort. Not everyone states that they've been taken for the sole purpose of genetic breeding. So it's not as simple as what's being painted on the internet. But if I could go over some of that data.
Go ahead.
Please do, yes.
Yeah. Well, we've got now, this is the most up-to-date data now, okay? Do you believe that you're involved in an alien breeding program, i.e. that genetic material was taken from you for the creation of another being, okay? We've got 495 people that said yes, okay? Very large number. If you do believe that you have been part of an ET breeding program, what particular type of alien or being do you feel was involved in this program? The number one type of being was the short rays at 49%. The tall grays were 34%. The human being was 39%. And we have other numbers for other types of beings. We asked the question is, if you believe you're a part of an ET breeding program, do you know the purpose of this breeding program? 191 people said yes, they know. Okay. Now in the interviews, we'll be asking them, to tell us We said, do you believe that you're part of an ET breeding program? Do you believe that you will have an alien hybrid child? 368 said yes. Now, when we asked them, were you ever presented with a hybrid child? That number gets reduced to 179. Okay. So, one part is believing something. The other part is having a child being presented to you. That's 179. So, do you believe that you and an ET have ever reached any kind of an agreement? 481 people said yes, that they have reached an agreement with an ET. Now, was this an agreement to participate in the alien breeding program? 136 people said yes, that it was particularly the agreement for the alien breeding. Okay. Do you recall ever consciously, can you consciously recall lying on a table or a bed and being examined by an ET? 377 people said yes. Okay. Did you ever recall being operated on by an ET? Well, 212 people said yes. Wow. Et cetera, et cetera. So this is just an example of how in depth we got, and that's just with the alien breeding program. We asked numerous types of questions. I won't go into all the specific areas, but we asked questions about the relationship between these entities, the ETs for lack of a better word, and the spirit world. We asked over 50 questions associated with that. We asked questions about the abductions, okay? We asked questions about the medical.
Were any of your responders themselves extraterrestrials? Did they identify themselves as?
Oh, yes. I would have to search for that question. But we asked that question in terms of soul swapping. Were they ever an ET in a past life? Did they ever physically go, from being a human to an ET and then back? That type of question. Numerous of these type of questions, and we did get a very large number. I would have to give you the exact type of numbers. But yes, we did ask those questions. But everyone can see all of our data at our website. Our website is experiencer.org. That's experiencer.org. And one of our submenus is titled Experiencer Research. So if you go in there, you will see all of the data. And we have it compartmentalized in terms of the family history, contact with an ET present, contact with an ET not present, psychic and the paranormal experiences, the relationship of ETs in the spirit world, contact in a matrix reality, the physical experiences with an entity, childhood experiences, the psychic and the physical changes that occurred, the life inventory changes, the opinions of transformation, summary beliefs, numerous other type of topic areas. We even ask a question about RH negative, because the whole internet has circulated. Oh, if you're an experiencer, you have to be RH negative. If you've been abducted, you have to be RH negative. Well, we asked that question. Okay, how many of you are RH negative? Well, we found out 14.5%. And what's the population of RH negative in the United States? 15%. So there's no deviation. You don't have to be RH
negative. Did you put a question in there? Have you been regressed, hypnotized by a therapist? And is there a difference in those who have recovered memories and those who were just trying to do it as, answering?
Well, for phase one
survey.
and phase 1 and phase 2, which are the 600 quantitative questions, we asked the responses only based upon conscious explicit memory. The reason for that is methodologically, if we are to publish a peer-reviewed publication and we are including their hypnotic regression from, Tom, Dick, and Harry, even someone that's taken a 2-hour Dolores Cannon class, okay, we're going to be attacked left and right, okay? Now, for phase 3, which are the written responses to open-ended questions, we are allowing explanations of their experiences based upon different types of conscious memories. Hypnotic regression is one of them, through channeling, through lucid dreams, et cetera, et cetera. So phase 3, we are allowing that, but not so we can able to quantify what response is to what type of memory, okay? Because when you talk to experiencers, you could talk to them for 2 hours, and they'll tell you 200 different experiences. And later on, you find out 150 of those were through hypnotic regression. 25 of those were through a lucid dream. But actual conscious explicit memory might have been 2 or 3, okay? Or any type of mixtures. So, but many times they don't tell you, oh, that came through a lucid dream, that came through hypnotic regression, that came through channeling, whatever. You just assume that it was all conscious explicit memory. So that's why we broke it down in phase 3.
That's good. Yeah, because I was wondering, like some of the questions, you've got an answer, but they may have had another experience, and once they go into it in therapy or regression or whatever you want to call it, they might have different information. So it might be, since you have these things with these people that were having conscious memories, what happens if they explore those conscious memories? What we find as therapists is that often a whole other picture emerges about what was going on. Like they might have, like I remember eyes, I remember a face, and they don't remember the rest. And when you take them in, they'll get a lot of details about what actually happened in that experience. But on a conscious level, they just go, oh, well, they just came in the room and they popped out again. And
we do get into that in phase 3. Phase 3 is written responses to 70 open-ended questions.
Right. And I have to go finish my phase 3. I didn't do that one yet. So what did you want to say, Sasha? You had a question on your mind. All right, continue, Ray, with your statistics. We're doing great here.
Well,
what else did you want to share?
Yes, Sasha?
Oh, I just I don't want to miss out on the support framework that you've created for people too. I want to make sure we get that in.
Okay,
too. And I have a question before we go into that.
Okay, well, ask your question and then we'll get into the support aspects of it.
Okay, yeah, because I just thought of something. What we're experiencing here as interviewers is a whole lot of people that are whistleblowers that are coming forth that they've worked alongside extraterrestrials. There's a secret space program, and that, the real paradigm of existence is much different than the one we're being given. Have you thought about what to do with like the super soldiers and the whistleblowers with that information? Has that been addressed in free? What to do with those people?
Well, we've gotten responses from 3,100 individuals, and not one of them has informed us of that type of a program that they know about or have been involved in.
Well, what I guess my question is there support for those people that are brave enough to come out and tell the stories within free? Or what kind of resources are there for those people? Because they're afraid. I've been on a military base. And
we don't break it down. Yeah, we don't break down our referral. For us, it's helping people that have had any type of contact with non-human elements, whether the contact experience has been extremely negative or even extremely positive. Like in my case, it was very, very positive, but it was mind-blowing. And for over a year, I had no one to talk to. So, for both positive and negative experiences, you still want someone to talk to about these things. So,
has there been any sanctions put on you or your people for making this information so public? Have you been had difficulties with government agencies or agents?
Mention that I haven't experienced anything in particular, what is happening underneath, but nothing that I am aware of. Which is quite surprising, because the first time we're actually able to get data of what really is happening. As I told you before, no one has ever done this type of study, where for the first time we actually have statistics of what's going on. So, surprisingly, it's been allowed to move forward.
Wonderful. You have questions, Sasha?
Well, no, it's just that our security apparatus is always concerned with the military application of information, and they wish to monopolize it. And so that's what I was probing for.
Yeah, no, we never discuss any type of sensitive information over the telephone or over the internet. particularly the type of information of the downloads that we talked to you about, the physics downloads. You never see me discussing these things over any interviews and over the telephone, even though that does take place.
So we have about a half an hour. Where's Free going with all this information? What's the next step? What kind of support system?
Let me sort of summarize the research study. What we want to be able to do is we have several Ph.D. physicists in our group. The vast majority of them are not public. If I were to mention the names, you would know the names of these people. We've just recently added Dr. Claude Swanson, who's a PhD physicist from Princeton, and he wrote a book titled The Synchronized Universe. He's one of the open and public physicists in our group, and many other retired academics that are formerly part of the board of directors. So what we want to be able to do is to come up with several peer-reviewed publications, as well as a series of books for the masses, for the lay audiences, with our data. And most probably each book will be thematically related. Like a book might be, the comparisons between NDEs and UFO contact. Another book would be on abductions. Another book would be about the whole, transformation of the experiencers, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we want to do with our research study. And again, all of our data is publicly available at experiencer.org. And for experiencers, we have a Facebook site titled Free Experiencers. That's Free Experiencers. And that's for Facebook, and that's for the experiencer support aspect of it. Let me go over a couple of the support programs that we're doing. Okay, what Free undertook is we developed for the first time ever a worldwide database of individuals that can provide support for experiencers, and we group them into 4 categories. One is licensed mental health therapists. Number 2, we have support groups. Number 3 are regression therapists, and number 4 are energy healers. And that list now has over 350 individuals from over 34 states in the U.S. and 10 countries around the world. And once again, if you go to our website, experiencer.org, and if you click on support, experiencer support, you can see that list. Free also has a program titled the Peer-to-Peer Support Program, where we do one-on-one communications, telephone support communications over the telephone. That's we've been doing this for over 2 years now, and we have assisted over 450 individuals. And if you need support, send us an email at support@experiencer.org. That's support@experiencer.org. Another program that I want to tell folks about, and that's a program that both you, Janet, and Sasha are participating in. Free is trying to organize the major support organizations around the world to try to work together. And what we found out was that many of these individuals did not even know each other. You had Yvonne Smith in Los Angeles. She didn't even know who Audrey Hewins was. And Audrey is located in the Northeast. And yet they are the 2 biggest support organizations in the United States. And the 2 leaders of this group didn't even know of each other or the work of each other. So this organization called the Experiencer Support Coalition, we're trying to get all of these individuals and organizations to try to work together under one umbrella. And one of the things that Free is trying to push is something called an Experiencer Liberation Day, which is a day where, where all experiencers can come out of the closet and socialize with each other at the local level and to celebrate themselves as being experiencers and coming out publicly. And this year we've established it as October 1st. And Yvonne Smith out of the Zero Group is having an event, an all-day webinar, and they've flown in Mary Rodwell in from Australia. They've also flown in the antithesis of Mary, which is David Jacobs. And they have this other lady, which is an experiencer that was in one of the books of Bud Hopkins. And they also have Melinda Leslie and several other people that are experiencers and abductees to have an all-day streaming on a webinar format. If you want additional information of this, you could send us an email, and we will send you a link to that event. It's from Pacific time. It's 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. And so our website that you can send it to is info@experiencer.org. That's info@experiencer.org. And it costs $25 for the all-day event. And what we would like individuals to do is to invite your friends, other experiencers that live close to you, or the support organization that you're affiliated with, and try to meet that day. It's a Saturday. And then to be able to collaborate with each other to go over the thematic topics that these panelists are going over. So it's like having an internal meeting about your experiences. And so we want people all over the world to be able to meet and group together on that day, which is October 1st.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you know what the logic is? I mean, when I did the Penn State UFO support group from 89 to 93, we were attacked by Phil Klass over and over and over again. To me, having David Jacobs flown in and be a part of this, like inviting Phil Klass to come in, we kept them out, I don't get that. What was the logic
as I said before,
the adversary?
That we are not sponsoring this event. It's Yvonne Smith and Zero. They paid for, they're paying for all of this. It's their event. What we're doing is we're piggybacking on that event, and we're trying to get individuals to meet on that day, because the Free Board of Director, co-founder, Mary Rodwell, will be the headliner speaker at the end of this event. And we know that Mary, from my perspective, is going to tear into shreds, David Jacobs, because if he comes out publicly,
I would like to be there.
If he comes out publicly to say that he has never met an experiencer with a positive experience, our study is the total antithesis. And this is a study that's being done by real academics, not pseudo academics like this man.
Well, Barbara Lamb went up against him at the International UFO Congress in February, and she did a really good job. But if you ever have a chance to meet him, he's like a broken record. And it doesn't matter what you say. There were thousands of people over the course of time that say, I've had positive experiences. And what he does is dismisses it. He says, well, you must be crazy. That's kind of what he does.
He has an agenda, and in my opinion, it's a paid agenda. Because how else can you explain someone for the last 35 years, as you said, as a broken record, saying that he's never met someone with a positive experience? So to me, that's a paid agenda.
Sasha, you had something to say.
No, I think you already covered it adequately. It's this person is like having Cotton Mather tell you about spirituality.
All right. So this event is, and I admire you, Ray, because I was there when you started down this road, and you had your Experiencer Day buttons, and you had this idea from moment one about Experiencer Day, and it's coming to pass, and I think that's fabulous. So that's going to be October 1st. Now, I'm over here, I want to back up a little bit. I'm over here in Maui, and I'm all by myself. You said there's going to be like a streaming something that... Yes.
We had sent out to our free mailing list a flyer that goes into the if folks will go to the Zero website, which is Yvonne Smith website, you'll be able to get it. It's a webinar that you could watch it on your computer. The idea is it's only $25. So if you get 5 people to watch it together, that's $5 each, and it's a 7-hour presentation. And as I said, our very own Mary Rodwell is going to be the headliner towards the end of this. And so, as I said, we're piggybacking on them. We wanted to get some funding to do our own perspective, with our own people. But at this point, we just didn't have the funding for it. They are doing the event, and so we asked them, can we, publicize the Experiential Liberation Day on top of your event? And both of these individuals, James Lowe, who's a member of CERO, and Yvonne Smith, both of them are members of our Experiencer Support Coalition, and I know that you met them in some of our calls, and these are very genuine and sincere people, so the idea is every year, doesn't have to be October 1st, could be another day of the year, but if we would have something similar where people all over the world are listening into the live streaming and getting together at a local level, then you have all the major cities, people meeting as a group to be able to talk about things. And the idea is that will be an impetus for a social movement, like Earth Day, like Gay and Lesbian Liberation Day, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the idea behind all of this.
Well, I think it's a great idea, and I like how we have some conferences that are starting. I know there's Experiencers Speak in Maine, which has been going on for 5 years now. So there is some momentum.
The Canadian Cosmic Expo is it about?
Oh yeah, we went this year to the Alien Cosmic Expo in. It's going to be in Toronto in 2017, and that was experiencer based. It was very powerful, and a lot of the conferences are adding experiencer groups as part of their conferences. There was actually one in Contact in the Desert. It was well attended. So what do you see the future of all this? Projecting this forward another, couple of years.
Well, in terms of the future, our organization does not really see our work tied into quote unquote ufology. Before he passed away, Dr. Mitchell sent a letter to all of these conference organizers that you've just mentioned and many more. Contact in the Desert, to MUFON, to the International UFO Congress, to some of the folks in Canada that are having these major conferences. And basically what he said is, can you please invite one of our retired Ph.D. professors to make a presentation about the results from our research study? Because our research study has come up with data and findings which run totally antithesis to what's being circulated in these conferences. And no one was interested. They're more concerned about bringing these well-known names that repeat the same thing, year after year after year after year, and many of them really have nothing new to state. And in many ways, that relationship that I talked about is sort of like an incestuous relationship. And what we're trying to do at Free, as I said before, is, we're a consciousness organization. We're really way beyond, the nuts and bolts of strategy. And unless individuals begin to perceive this as a much, much more comprehensive agenda, then I think we're still going to be spinning wheels, because really, what has ufology given us over the last 70 years? What type of cutting edge information have they given us over 70 years? Okay.
One of the things, Ray, is they've given us a bunch of lies. One of the things that Stanton Friedman has said is that it says in the government contracts of everyone that works for it, you must not even acknowledge the existence of certain research programs and information that we have, and you must lie about them and say they do not exist. And he showed us. He put it up on the screen at Contact in the Desert. If you work for the government, you got to lie.
Right.
Well, we think that where the focus needs to be at the experiencer level. Okay, that's where you're going to be getting the gold mine. That all these ufologists have been looking for. And actually down to craft, so they could go in there and interview these entities and look at the technology. That the gold mine really is at the experiential level. We have a motto saying disclosure from the bottom up, because disclosure is taking place. It's taking place at the experiential level. And we think that the priorities ought to be in focusing not only on the experiences of UFO-related contact, but how does these types of contact experiences relate to the folks that are having near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, mystical meditation contact, channeling, contact via lucid dreaming, remote viewing, shamanic hallucinogenic journeys, people that are having contact with ghosts and spirits, orbs. There's lots of people that are seeing orbs pretty much on a weekly basis. A lot of people have taken videos of orbs, numerous videos of orbs. The whole ESP, the precognition, the whole paranormal arena. Okay, this is where the future lies in this work. And again, mixing in together with PhD physicists that are working on whole aspects of the physics of consciousness, mixing in the work that these PhD physicists are doing to the whole contact phenomenon. That really is, the agenda free. And again, we have zero funding. Okay, we're self-funding, funding all the different projects that we're doing. Imagine if we had, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. Okay. One of the things that Free wants to do is we have a documentary that we already have a trailer out. I don't know if you've seen it or not. I sent it to various emails.
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. The trailer is titled The Physics of Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. Okay. We have 8 PhD physicists that have agreed to participate in this documentary. Okay. Now, these are all physicists that, as Mary says, are way down the rabbit hole. Okay. And what we're trying to do is exactly what Free's mission is to be able to explain that all of these paranormal contact modalities, they're not separate, but in fact are interrelated. And that quite possibly the physics of consciousness can explain contact with non-human intelligence at a multidimensional level. And we've got these 8 PhD physicists and 6 other PhD scientists that have committed to participate in our documentary. And all we need is the funding for it. We think it's going to be a totally,
Have you tried like the GoFundMe type, and those type of platforms? Have you tried launching
that's
campaigns?
Going to be sort of our that we have that on our agenda. We're developing that as well, but we have several potential major funders in mind. We've gotten, batted down from several of these individuals because they've contributed already to some of these big names already. Stephen Bassett, Stephen Greer, and many of these people have been burnt by these individuals. And so they don't want to give more funding, to these types of initiatives. But we've identified other people, a lot of money, that are experiencers themselves or have a deep topics. We have about maybe 6 or 7 of these people identified, and we're working to try to get these people interested in funding some of the projects that we're working on. But if we do get funding for these things, oh my goodness, watch out, because it really it's the mixing of advanced science with the experiencer phenomenon, and that really is the future of where we need to go.
I agree. I will, after this show, send you some information about some movie makers that might be able to pull this off. And I think you may have met them when you were at the...
we are working with Ron James.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're working with this man, Ron James. We've been working with him now for 6 months. He did our movie trailer. He's perfect for the job because he's thoroughly knowledgeable about the whole multi-dimensional aspects of our reality. He's interviewed, Hasim Harriman, some of our PhD physicists, Edgar Mitchell, some of the folks that are not publicly part of Free, but are part of our board of directors. He's interviewed some of these people. He also has this whole spiritual aspect of this relationship and has interviewed numerous experiencers. And so, he's perfect for the job. What we really need is the funding. And we're looking at investors. We're not looking at gifts. We're looking at people to view this as an investment, because we think that we can certainly put this in to Netflix and put it out, just like that serious documentary that Greer did. Except our program is going to be
Oops. Sorry, forgot to turn my phone off. Keep talking. Keep talking.
no problem.
Sorry.
One concept that we also want to do as part of this multi-dimensional strategy is we want to move forward with a concept called experiencer TV, which is sort of like getting what Gaia-T is doing it to putting it on steroids. And we're going to be focusing on all of the contact modalities, the shamanic journeys, the channeling, the remote viewing, the mystical meditation contact, the whole ESP aspect that IONS, Institute of Noetic Sciences, is working on. The whole aspect of quantum physics, of consciousness. Put that all under one umbrella. We still don't have. We have a tentative title of Experiencer TV, but at least it's what Free is doing. It's at putting it in a 24-hour TV format with numerous shows.
Sounds great. And then what about the conferences? I know we talked about years ago, and we do have the Experiencer Speak. Are there any plans to try to do more locations so more people get to these conferences?
It's money, Janet. I was one of the presenters at the Experiencer Speak conference, and again, Audrey every year is striving to get funds to be able to pull it off, and at the last minute she's able to pull it off. Most of the time with her spending a lot of her own money to make ends meet. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do with this Experiencer Support Coalition, is to try to get all these organizations to chip in, to work together. So instead of Audrey doing this, we're all going to be working under one umbrella. But again, it takes money. It takes money. But if we're all working together, putting egos aside and say, okay, I'm chipping in, I'm willing to help and volunteer. It certainly can be done, Janet.
Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, we only have a few minutes left. What would you like to cover before the music comes on?
Well, just to let folks know, to keep an open mind, because most of what's circulating on the internet is all, how should I say, old school type of abduction type of data that's floating around. And it's an old school paradigm, which is the abduction paradigm. And from our perspective at Free, that old school paradigm is the dinosaur. It's already dead. It's that people don't realize it because just focusing on the nuts and bolts of analyzing UFO pictures, UFO crafts, looking at conspiracy theories, looking at historical research papers, that can only take you so far, and it's quite limiting. We think that the gold mine that needs to be pursued is focusing on consciousness and advanced quantum physics and the contact modalities through the experiencers. And that really is the key to be able to more fully understand the type of experiencers that we're all going through. And you are a testament to that, Janet, okay? Because you are paranormal A to Z, okay? Half of those things that we talked about today, you've had them, okay? And you're not the only one. When you've interviewed these people, experiencers, you get to see it's all of these paranormal experiences come into play. And that really is the key to trying to solve this riddle. And we're just laying the foundation, Janet, as you know, and Sasha. We're not going to be able to solve this riddle here in our generation. All we're doing is just changing the paradigm so then we can properly begin to address these issues.
Are there any things out there, YouTube, media, movies, television, resources that you could kind of give 2 thumbs up and recommend for people so they get kind of a background on this besides, reading a lot of books?
Yeah, we have our website, which is experiencer.org. We are developing a new website, so it's going to be totally retooled, but at least you can still go to our current website. There we have articles on the contact modalities. I've mentioned that through our interviews. But if folks can go in there, you can see about 7 articles written by many of our PhD academics about the contact modalities. You know, what is it? Okay, and it's basically is that all of these modalities of how humans are piercing the veil and having contact with non-human intelligence, how all of them are interrelated, but yet humans are studying them separately. You know, we just talked about the NDE literature. Why? Because they don't associate NDE with channeling, with UFO contact, with remote viewing, et cetera, et cetera. I went to a conference in Orlando, the National Science for Near Studies. Those folks, that's all they had in mind, NDEs. They didn't see the interrelationships. Okay. Same thing with the folks at the Monroe Institute, the out-of-body experiences. Okay. Or the folks at the Edgar Cayce organization, you know, in terms of remote viewing, they're focusing on that a lot. But the approach at Free is that it's all interrelated. So that's the articles on the contact modality. We also have roughly 20 articles on the science and physics of consciousness. And most of those articles are geared for the lay reader. They're not for PhD scientists. So go over there and take a look at that. We're also going to be having numerous articles on the separate contact modalities, articles on near-death experiences, videos on near-death experiences, on channeling, articles on channeling, videos, et cetera, so people can see how all of these are all interrelated. We've got some of them. Are you
going to feature any first-person experiencer stories?
Yes. We're going to be. We've already gotten roughly 40 people that have written us that they want to volunteer. And several of these individuals are for one particular project. And that is, we want to be able to have out-of-the-closet videos, okay? And these are videos no longer than 10 minutes where someone identifies who they are and to share their experience. So it'll be something like this. Hello, my name is Rey Hernandez. I'm an attorney here in Miami, Florida. All of my family are experiencers. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about my experience. So it's literally coming out of the closet publicly. And imagine if we would have hundreds of these people, you know, where you just have a picture and you scroll over a picture, you click that picture of my ugly mug, you know, and boom, you get my story. So you would have your picture, you would get your story, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So those are called out of the closet videos. And
I
also,
like that.
Yeah. So these are all things that, again, we've got no money. So we're doing this with volunteers. We have got a volunteer webmaster that's able to help us. We also want to do educational workshops.
And we're out of time, Ray. So we'll hold that thought. But thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, listeners. This has been the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio. Hello.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Who owns you? If you're not in control, then someone else is. Join me, Ivy West, for Voices on the Wind, Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern in Studio A. I discuss government, health, metaphysics, suppressed science, universal mysteries, little-known incredible facts, alternative energies, and even more than you can imagine. Won't you join us on Revolution Radio Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern for Voices on the Wind with me, Ivy West.
There are lives in the balance, people under fire, children at the cannons.
Because if your head's in the sand, your tail is a target.